The package arrived on their 3-month mating anniversary, delivered by a courier who smelled like pine and earth and everything Min-suk had spent 2 years trying to forget. He found it on the penthouse doorstep at dawn, returning from a night shift at the clinic where he'd stitched up 2 Bratva enforcers and delivered an Omega refugee's baby. The twins were still sleeping. Dmitri was in his office coordinating shipments, and Min-suk was riding the high of another life saved when he saw the envelope. Cream-colored paper. His mother's handwriting. The pack's official seal pressed into red wax. His hands shook as he opened it. "You were never expelled, my son. You were always ours." The words blurred as he read. Pack Elder Council. Invalid expulsion. Article 47, Section 3. The twins, Alexei and Anya, his babies, his whole heart, classified as pack blood relatives subject to pack jurisdiction. A summons. A legal claim. A threat wrapped in his mother's elegant script. "Come home, Minsuka. Before it's too late. Before we're forced to collect what belongs to us." The letter slipped from his fingers. His legs gave out. He was dimly aware of hitting the marble floor, of his scent spiking with terror so sharp the guards down the hall would smell it, of the mating mark on his neck burning as Dmitri felt his distress through their bond. Then Dmitri was there, hauling him up, gray eyes wild with alpha-protective rage. What happened? Who? Min-suk couldn't speak. Could only hand him the letter and watch his mate's face go from concerned to murderous in the space between heartbeats. "They're threatening our children." Dmitri's voice was arctic. "They're actually threatening." "They're not threatening." Min-suk's voice came out broken. "They're taking them. My pack. My family. They're coming for us." And somewhere 3 hours away in pack territory, Min-suk's brother smiled and made a phone call. The hunt had begun. Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers and tell me where you're watching from. The lawyer's name was Patricia Chun, and she specialized in supernatural human interface law, which meant she'd seen everything and was impressed by nothing. She sat across from Dmitri's desk in the penthouse office, her expression carefully neutral as she delivered the verdict that was dismantling Min-suk's world piece by piece. "The pack has legal standing," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Korean pack law operates under the Supernatural Entities Covenant of 1987, which grants recognized packs jurisdictional authority over their registered members in matters of Omega welfare, child custody, and mating bond validation." He wasn't a registered member. Dmitri's voice was controlled, but Min-suk could feel the rage vibrating through their bond like a live wire. "They expelled him 2 years ago." "Actually, they didn't." Patricia pulled out a document, slid it across the desk. "Official pack letterhead, dated 3 years ago. This is a temporary separation order, not an expulsion. It's a distinction without a difference in practical terms. He was still cast out, but legally, it means J. Min-suk remained a pack member subject to recall." Min-suk stared at the document, at his father's signature at the bottom, and felt something crack in his chest. They planned this. Even then they planned this. It's possible they kept the option open deliberately, yes. Patricia's expression softened fractionally. "The issue is Article 47, Section 3 of pack law. Any mating bond formed by a pack Omega with a non-pack Alpha requires Elder Council approval. Without it, the bond can be legally contested within 5 years of formation. We're mated." Min-suk's hand went to the bite scar on his neck. Dmitri's claim burned into his skin and soul. "The bond is complete. You can't just." "The pack isn't contesting the bond's existence. They're contesting its legality." Patricia turned to another page. "And under Section 7, subsection D, any children born to or adopted by a contested bond are considered pack custody until the matter is resolved." Which means, the phone on Dmitri's desk rang. Not his personal line. The emergency line that only the head of security used for immediate threats. Dmitri answered without breaking eye contact with Patricia. Listened. His face went white, then red, then utterly expressionless in a way that was more terrifying than rage. "When?" he said quietly. A pause. "Show me." He ended the call and pulled up security footage on his computer. Min-suk stood on shaking legs and moved to see the screen, Patricia forgotten, the legal argument meaningless compared to what he knew with sick certainty, he was about to see. The footage was from the nursery. Timestamp. 3 hours ago, while Min-suk had been at the clinic delivering a baby and Dmitri had been in a meeting with his captains. For men in tactical gear, but moving with the fluid coordination of pack enforcers. They'd bypassed the guards. How? Sedatives? Bribed? And entered the nursery where the twins napped. One man scooped up Alexei. Another took Anya. Professional. Efficient. The babies didn't even wake fully, just fussed slightly as they were transferred to carriers. The fourth man turned to face the camera. Removed his mask. Minsuk's father. Jae Sung-ho. Pack enforcer. The man who'd taught Minsuk to ride a bike and throw a punch and then stood silent while the elders cast him out. He looked directly at the camera and mouthed 2 words. I'm sorry. Then they were gone. The timestamp showed them leaving through the service entrance, the one that bypassed main security because it was scheduled for maintenance. Someone had helped them. Someone inside. Minsuk's legs gave out again. This time Dmitri caught him, hauled him into his chest, and Minsuk could feel the alpha's heart hammering with barely controlled violence. I'm going to kill them. Dmitri's voice was conversational, which made it more terrifying. Every single one of them. Your father first. Slowly. Then I'm burning your pack territory to the ground and salting the earth so nothing ever grows there again. No. Minsuk's voice came out strangled. You can't. I can and I will. They took our children. They violated our home. They have legal standing. Patricia's voice cut through the rage. Mr. Volkov, if you retaliate with violence, you violate the covenant. The federal government will intervene. You'll lose everything, your businesses, your freedom, and any legal claim to the children. The pack is counting on you to react with force. It's a trap. Dmitri's grip on Minsuk tightened. Then what do you suggest? We negotiate with people who stole my children while I was in a meeting? We ask nicely for them back. We use their own law against them. Minsuk pulled back enough to meet Dmitri's eyes. His own were wet, but his voice was steadying, the medical calm he'd learned in emergency situations kicking in. They want me back in pack territory. They're using the twins as leverage to force my return. So I return. Absolutely not. Dmitri's alpha command bled through, making Minsuk's omega instincts cringe. You're not walking into that trap alone. I'm not alone. I'm mated to the head of the Russian Bratva. Minsuk cupped Dmitri's face, forcing him to focus. You taught me strategy. You taught me that the best way to win isn't always the most violent way. They expect you to come in shooting. They're prepared for that. They're not prepared for me to come home willingly and play their game from the inside. They'll force you into another bond. They can't. Not without breaking me first, and I'm a lot harder to break than I was 2 years ago. Minsuk's voice dropped to something fierce. You made sure of that. We both did. Dmitri's forehead pressed against his, breathing hard. I can't lose you. I can't lose any of you. You won't. But you have to trust me. Minsuk pulled back, looked at Patricia. How long do we have before they can legally enforce a bond dissolution? 30 days from the date of the summons. After that, they can petition for forced separation and claim the children permanently. 30 days. Minsuk turned back to Dmitri. I need you to trust me for 30 days. I go in. I play the repentant Omega. I find out what they really want, because this isn't just about me or pack purity. There's something else. There has to be. Minsuk, our children are in my pack's territory with my father, who just committed treason against you but looked at that camera and apologized to me. Minsuk's hands were steady now, his scent shifting from terror to determination. He's conflicted. That's leverage. My mother is supposedly dying. That's emotional manipulation, but also opportunity. And if they're going through this much legal maneuvering instead of just killing you and taking me, it means they need something. They need you compliant. Maybe. Or they need the Bratva connection. Either way, violence plays into their hands. Minsuk stepped back, straightened his spine, and became the Omega who'd poisoned guards and taken bullets and refused to be helpless. I'm going home. You're going to hate every second of it. But you're going to let me, because we're partners and you trust my judgment the way I trusted yours when you sent me to that cabin. The reminder of that decision, the one that had nearly cost them everything, landed like a physical blow. Dmitri's expression cycled through rage, fear, and resignation before settling on grim acceptance. 30 days, he said. And I'm putting trackers everywhere. On you, on the twins, on every piece of clothing you take. If they so much as threaten you, then you'll know immediately and can respond. Minsuk managed a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Patricia, draft whatever documentation I need to voluntarily return to pack custody pending resolution. Make it look like I'm cooperating. This is insane, Dmitri said. This is marriage, Minsuk countered. To a mafia boss who taught me that sometimes the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't see coming. He kissed Dmitri then, fierce and claiming, tasting the alpha's fear and rage and love. When he pulled back, his voice was steady. Get our children back. Whatever it takes. But do it smart. Dmitri nodded once, sharp and military. 30 days. And then, if they haven't returned them, I'm coming with everything I have. Deal. Minsuk turned to Patricia. When do we leave? Tomorrow morning. I'll escort you personally as legal counsel. Tomorrow. 12 hours to prepare to walk back into the nightmare he'd escaped. To face the family that had thrown him away and now wanted him back. 12 hours before he'd see Alexei and Anya and have to pretend he wasn't screaming inside. He looked at Dmitri and saw his own terror reflected back. But beneath it, he saw trust. And that would have to be enough. The Pack territory sat 2 hours north of the city, nestled in mountains that had belonged to the J family for 3 generations. Minsuk watched the landscape shift from urban sprawl to forest through the SUV's tinted windows. Patricia chin silent beside him, and felt like he was driving toward his own execution. The trackers Dmitri had embedded. In his phone, his watch, the silver chain around his neck that looked decorative but transmitted his location every 30 seconds, felt like lifelines. He touched the mating mark on his throat, the raised scar tissue where Dmitri's teeth had claimed him, and drew strength from the bond humming beneath his skin. I'm here, Dmitri's presence whispered through their connection. Always here. The Pack compound appeared through the trees like something from a period drama. Traditional Korean architecture mixed with modern security, sprawling across 20 acres of protected land. Minsuk had grown up here, had learned to shift in these woods, had scraped his knees on these paths, had believed this place would always be home. Then he'd presented Omega at 19 and learned that home had conditions. The SUV stopped at the main house. Patricia squeezed his hand once, the only gesture of comfort she'd allow herself, and Minsuk stepped out into air that smelled like pine and Pack musk and memories that cut like glass. His brother stood on the front steps. Jin-woo had always been handsome in that classic alpha way. Strong jaw, broad shoulders, the kind of presence that commanded rooms. 2 years had sharpened him into something more dangerous. He wore a tailored suit that screamed new money and old power, his smile welcoming and his eyes calculating. Minsuka. He used the familiar suffix like a weapon disguised as affection. Welcome home, little brother. I'm here for my children. Minsuk kept his voice level, professional. And to resolve the legal matter the council raised. Of course. Always so direct. Jin-woo descended the steps, and Minsuk's Omega instincts screamed at the alpha dominance radiating from him. When had his brother gotten this strong? But first, family. Mother has been asking for you. She's waited 2 years, Minsuk. Surely you can spare her an hour before we discuss business. It wasn't a request. Patricia started to object, but Minsuk touched her arm. It's fine. Family first. He met Jin-woo's eyes. After all, that's what this is about, isn't it? Family. Always. Jin-woo's smile didn't reach his eyes. Patricia SSI, our hospitality coordinator, will show you to the guest house. You'll be comfortable there during negotiations. They were separating him from his legal counsel within minutes of arrival. Minsuk nodded to Patricia, trusting she'd document everything, that Dmitri was hearing this through the tracker's audio feed, and followed his brother into the house that used to be home. Inside, everything was exactly as he remembered and completely different. Same furniture, same art on the walls, but the air felt heavier, laden with Pack politics he'd once understood instinctively and now had to decode like a foreign language. His younger siblings waited in the main hall. Jiwoo had been 14 when Minsuk left. Now she was 16 and beautiful, her Omega scent barely masked by suppressants. She looked at him with something between hope and accusation. Beside her, Min-jae at 12 was already showing alpha traits, standing protective and uncertain. Appa, Jiwoo whispered, and the word big brother hit harder than any of Jin-woo's threats. Minsuk wanted to hug her, to tell her he'd thought about her every day, that leaving her had been the hardest part. But Jin-woo's hand landed on his shoulder, steering him past the siblings toward the stairs. Later, mother first. The master bedroom smelled like sickness and expensive florals trying to mask it. Minsuk's mother lay in a bed that seemed to swallow her, frail in a way that shocked him. She'd been vibrant 2 years ago, sharp-tongued and beautiful, the Pack matriarch who'd ruled social functions with an iron fist wrapped in silk. Cancer had carved her down to essentials. Minsuka. Her voice was thin but clear. Come here. Let me see you. He approached on shaking legs. Her hand shot out with surprising strength, gripping his wrist, pulling him down until he was sitting on the edge of her bed. You look well. Happy, even. Her eyes, still sharp, still missing nothing, tracked his face. The Russian treats you well? His name is Dmitri. And yes, Minsuk didn't pull away from her grip. He's my mate, Yama. My chosen mate. Chosen. She smiled, sad and knowing. That's the problem, isn't it? You chose without asking, without permission, without considering what you owe this family. I owe this family nothing. You cast me out. We gave you space to realize your mistake. Her grip tightened, urgent now. Male omegas don't thrive outside pack structure, Min-suk. You were always going to come back. I just had to wait. The casual manipulation of it, the certainty that he'd crawl back eventually, made Min-suk's stomach turn. You orchestrated this. The letter. The legal trap. The twins being taken. I brought you home before I die. She said it like it was reasonable. Like kidnapping his children was an act of maternal love. Your father wanted to wait, to let you live your delusion longer. But I'm out of time, and you needed the correct motivation. My children aren't motivation. They're people. They're pack blood. J blood. They belong here, learning proper traditions, not being raised by Russian criminals who'll teach them violence and corruption. Her hand moved to his face, cupping his cheek with a gentleness that made the words hurt worse. I did this for you. To save you from a life that would destroy you. That Russian, he's using you, Min-suk. For what, I don't know yet. But men like that don't mate omegas like you out of love. You don't know anything about him. I know he let you get shot. I know you've performed illegal surgeries for his organization. I know you're trapped in a world of violence that will eventually kill you. Her thumb traced his cheekbone. Come home. Properly. Dissolve the Russian bond. Mate correctly within pack. Raise your children here where they're safe. I'll die knowing I fixed my mistake of letting you go. Min-suk pulled back, his heart hammering. Your mistake wasn't letting me go. It was throwing me away in the first place. We never threw you away. That's what I'm trying to tell you. She struggled to sit up, and despite everything, Min-suk helped her because she was still his mother and she was dying. The separation order was temporary. Always temporary. We were waiting for you to mature, to understand your place. My place. The words tasted like ash. You mean subservient. Obedient. A proper omega who doesn't want things like education or choice or a mate who sees me as an equal. I mean protected. Valued. Home. Her eyes glistened with tears that might have been genuine. Please, Min-suk. I don't have much time. Let me fix this before I go. Let me see you properly settled. Your children properly raised. Give me that peace. The emotional manipulation was masterful. She was dying, she loved him in her twisted way, and she genuinely believed she was saving him. It was almost easier when the cruelty had been naked and obvious. Where are my children? Min-suk stood, needing distance. Where are Alexei and Anya? Safe. In the nursery wing with your father. You can see them after we come to an understanding. An understanding being that I comply with your plans. An understanding being that you remember who you are. J. Min-suk. Pac Omega. My son. She leaned back against the pillows, suddenly looking ancient. Jinwoo will explain the details. But know this, everything I've done because I love you. Even if you hate me for it now. Min-suk looked at his dying mother and felt something break that he hadn't known was still intact. Some last hope that she'd be different this time. That she'd see him. I don't hate you, Iyama, he said quietly. I pity you. Because you're dying having never understood that love isn't supposed to feel like a cage. He walked out before she could respond, before the tears burning his eyes could fall. Jinwoo waited in the hallway, leaning against the wall with predatory patience. Did she convince you? His brother asked. Or do I need to? Min-suk straightened his spine, channeled every ounce of Dimitri's cold authority, and met Jinwoo's eyes without flinching. Show me my children. Then we'll talk about your terms. Jinwoo's smile was all teeth. This way, little brother. Let me show you everything you've been missing. As Min-suk followed his brother through the halls of his childhood home, Dimitri's presence pulsed through the bond, steady, furious, and absolutely there. 30 days, Min-suk thought. I can survive anything for 30 days. He touched his mating mark and believed it. Almost. The Elder Council chamber occupied the oldest part of the compound. A traditional hammock with exposed beams and floor cushions arranged in a semicircle that felt more like a tribunal than a family gathering. 5 alphas, all over 60, all radiating the kind of authority that came from generations of unchallenged rule. Min-suk knelt on the cushion they'd indicated, proper and submissive in posture, while his mind catalogued exits and calculated odds. Jinwoo sat to the right of the eldest, already positioned as heir. Patricia had been denied entry. Pack business, they'd said, and technically they were within their rights. Min-suk's phone sat in his pocket, recording everything, transmitting to Dimitri 3 hours away. The knowledge kept him steady. Elder Park spoke first, his voice carrying the weight of someone used to being obeyed. Jae Min-suk, you've returned to answer for your violations of Pak law. Do you understand the charges? I understand you've manufactured a legal fiction to justify kidnapping. Min-suk kept his voice respectful but clear. I was cast out. I built a life. I made it according to my rights as a free Omega. You don't get to retroactively claim jurisdiction. Your separation was temporary, pending maturation and proper judgment. Elder Kim, the Pak's legal expert, pulled out documents. You were never released from Pak registry. Therefore, your mating to the Russian required Elder Council approval per Article 47, Section 3. You proceeded without it. The bond is invalid. The bond is complete, bitten and accepted. You can't dissolve what's already. We can contest its legal standing. Elder Choi interrupted, his expression almost sympathetic. Which makes any children of that union subject to Pak custody pending resolution. You know this, Min-suka. Your father taught you Pak law. The mention of his father, who'd stolen his children while Min-suk saved someone else's baby, made his hands clench. What do you want? Compliance. Jinwoo's voice, smooth as poisoned honey. Acknowledgement that you erred. Willingness to correct course. Elder Park leaned forward. The terms are simple. You will formally dissolve your bond with the Russian through ritual rejection. You will accept a proper mating to a Pak Alpha of the Council's choosing. Someone who can guide you, protect you, correct the damage done by 2 years of improper influence. Your children will be raised here, in Pak tradition, with full rights and protection. You'll complete your medical degree under Pak sponsorship and serve as Pak physician. Everyone benefits. The casual way they dismantled his entire life, his mate, his choices, his autonomy, was breathtaking in its cruelty. Min-suk forced himself to breathe, to think. And if I refuse? Then your children remain in Pak custody indefinitely. Your bond is dissolved by force. You're declared unfit, and the twins are raised by Pak families more suitable to their needs. Elder Kim's expression was granite. You lose everything, Min-suk. This way, you keep your children. You keep your career. You simply accept the structure you were meant for all along. You're asking me to betray my mate. We're asking you to acknowledge reality. Jinwoo stood, moved to crouch beside Min-suk's cushion, his alpha presence overwhelming. The Russian is a criminal, Min-suk. He's dangerous. You've been shot, threatened, pulled into a world of violence that nearly killed you. Is that what you want for Alexei and Anya? To grow up dodging bullets. They're safe with Dmitri. They were kidnapped from his supposedly secure penthouse in under 10 minutes. Jinwoo's voice dropped to something almost kind. He can't protect them. But we can. We will. All you have to do is come home. The door opened and Min-suk's father entered, carrying Anya. Behind him, a Pak Omega Min-suk didn't recognize held Alexei. Both twins looked freshly bathed, properly dressed, and completely traumatized. Anya saw Min-suk and her face crumpled. Mama! Mama! The sound of her crying for him, reaching for him with desperate hands while his father held her just out of reach, was designed to break him. Psychological warfare at its most brutal. Let me hold her. Min-suk's voice shook. Please. After we reach an understanding. Elder Park's tone was implacable. Do you accept our terms? Alexei started crying now, confused and scared, calling for Papa and Mama in his broken toddler Russian-Korean mix. Min-suk's Omega instincts screamed to go to them, to comfort them, to do anything to stop their distress. You're torturing children to manipulate me. We're showing you what's at stake. Jinwoo gestured and Min-suk's father stepped closer, Anya's cries reaching a fever pitch. Say yes, and you hold them. Say no, and they learn to forget you. Children are resilient. They'll bond to new caregivers within weeks. Is your pride worth that? Min-suk looked at his children, Anya's face red with crying, Alexei's confusion turning to panic, and felt his resolve waver. 30 days suddenly felt like an eternity. How much trauma would they endure in 30 days? Then Anya said it, clear as crystal through her tears. Want Papa. Want home. She meant Dmitri. She meant the penthouse. She meant the life Min-suk had built for them, not this sterile Pak territory with strangers holding her. Min-suk stood, every elder's attention snapping to him in disapproval at the breach of protocol. No. Min-suk, his father started, something like regret in his voice. No. I don't accept your terms. My bond stands. My children belong with me and my mate. And if you think torturing babies will change my mind, you understand nothing about what motherhood has taught me. Min-suk's voice strengthened. I survived your rejection once. I built a life from nothing. I learned to be dangerous when I needed to be. You want to play games with custody law? Fine. We'll play. But you don't get to break me by hurting my children. Then you leave us no choice. Elder Park's expression hardened. Take the Omega to the guest quarters. The children remain in Pack Nursery. We'll reconvene in 3 days once he's had time to reconsider. Wait. Minsuk lunged toward Anya, but Pack enforcers materialized, blocking him. His father turned away, carrying his screaming granddaughter, and Minsuk felt something fracture in his chest. Jin Woo's hand landed on his shoulder, steering him toward the door. That was foolish, little brother. But you'll learn. They walked through corridors, away from his children's cries, until they reached a room that was clearly a cell dressed as guest quarters. Jin Woo pushed him inside, followed, and closed the door. The elders gave you the diplomatic version, Jin Woo said, his gracious host mask dropping to reveal something cold and calculating. Let me give you the reality. In 5 days, you'll be mated to Alpha Kong Daeyoung. He's traditional, believes Omega defiance needs to be corrected through firm discipline. Your Russian bond will be broken, painfully, and Kong will claim you in front of the entire pack to ensure it takes. Minsuk's blood turned to ice. Kong Daeyoung was notorious, a 60-year-old alpha who'd gone through 4 Omegas, all of whom had ended up broken, institutionalized, or dead. You can't. I can. The elders approve. He's wealthy, connected, and willing to take damaged goods. Jin Woo's smile was vicious. You'll give him proper heirs, pure pack blood, not Russian bastards. Those twins will be raised as cousins, told their real Omega parent was too weak to keep them. And you'll spend the rest of your life being the obedient Omega you should have been from the start. I'll kill myself first. You'll try. Kang's had practice with rebellious Omegas. He knows how to break resistance without damaging breeding capability. Jin Woo moved to the door. You have 3 days to come to terms with your new reality. I suggest you spend it wisely. Why? Minsuk's voice cracked. Why do this? What do you gain? Jin Woo paused, looked back with something that might have been pity if it wasn't so laced with contempt. You're a bridge to Russian territory, little brother. Kong has business interests that align with Bratva routes. Your mate will cooperate to keep you from being hurt worse. Everyone wins. Except me. You were never supposed to win. You're an Omega. You're a resource. Jin Woo opened the door. The sooner you accept that, the easier this becomes. The door closed. The lock clicked. And Minsuk stood in his gilded cell, his children's screams still echoing in his ears, and finally understood. His pack had never seen him as family. Not when he was a child, not now. He was property that had escaped and needed to be reclaimed, retrained, and put to proper use. His hand went to his mating mark, to Dimitri's claim burned into his skin, and he felt his mate's rage through the bond, incandescent, barely controlled, demanding blood. Not yet, Minsuk thought, projecting calm he didn't feel. I need to find the others. The trapped Omegas. I need evidence. Dimitri's response came like an avalanche. You need to survive. Let me come for you. 30 days. Trust me. The bond hummed with Dimitri's fury and fear and absolute faith. And Minsuk, locked in a room in his childhood home that had never been home, began to plan. 5 days until they tried to break his bond and force him to a monster. 5 days to find every trapped Omega, every piece of evidence, every crack in his brother's plan. 5 days to prove that the invisible Omega they'd thrown away had learned to become dangerous. He touched his mating mark one more time, drawing strength, and smiled. They'd made one critical mistake. They thought trauma would break him. But trauma had only ever made him sharper. Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers, and tell me where you're watching from. The first night in captivity, Minsuk couldn't sleep. His children's cries echoed in his mind. Dimitri's rage pulsed through the bond like a second heartbeat, and the walls of his cell disguised as guest room felt like they were closing in. At 2 a.m., he gave up trying and began exploring the limits of his prison. The door was locked, but the window opened. 3 stories up, no practical escape route, but fresh air that didn't smell like pack politics and manipulation. He was leaning out, breathing pine and plotting impossible rescues when he heard it. Crying. Quiet, muffled, coming from somewhere below. Minsuk's medical instincts kicked in before rational thought. He recognized that sound, the kind of crying that came from someone who'd learned that being loud brought punishment. His room was in the guest wing, supposedly isolated, but the old Hanok architecture carried sound through walls and floors in unexpected ways. Someone else was trapped here. He spent the next hour mapping the sounds, crying from below and to the left. Footsteps, guards, probably, patrolling every 30 minutes. The compound's layout from memory. His room was above what used to be servant quarters, now converted to something else. When dawn broke, Minsuk was ready. The Pack Omega who brought breakfast was young, nervous, his scent carrying the suppressants that marked him as unmated and expected to stay that way. He set the tray down with shaking hands, eyes downcast in the exaggerated submission of someone who'd been trained to be invisible. "What's your name?" Minsuk asked gently. The Omega flinched. "I'm not supposed to talk to you. I'm Pack 2. Or I was. Or I am, depending on who you ask." Minsuk kept his voice soft, non-threatening. "I just want to know who I'm sharing breakfast with." "Taemin." The name came out barely above a whisper. I bring meals to the guest wing." "All of the guest wing?" "There are others here." Taemin's eyes went wide with panic. He grabbed the tray and bolted, the door slamming behind him. But Minsuk had his answer. The medical visit request took 2 days to approve. Minsuk claimed he needed his suppressants adjusted. A lie, since mated Omegas didn't need suppressants, but the pack physician didn't question it. Probably assumed they were preparing to break his bond and needed him chemically managed. Dr. Yoon was old pack, his examination room in the compound's medical wing smelling like antiseptic and traditional herbs. He examined Minsuk with clinical detachment, asked questions about his cycle that Minsuk answered with strategic honesty, and finally turned to prepare an injection. "This will help manage your hormones during the transition period," Dr. Yoon said, not looking at him. "Transition to what?" Minsuk watched him draw clear liquid into a syringe. "What's in that?" "Suppressants. Standard protocol for unbonded Omegas." "I'm not unbonded. I'm mated." Minsuk's hand went to his neck, to Dimitri's mark. "That doesn't just disappear because you want it to. The bond will be dissolved within the week. These will ease the process." Dr. Yoon turned with the needle, and Minsuk saw his hands shake slightly. Guilt. The doctor knew exactly what was coming and hated it. "How many Omegas are you managing through forced bond dissolution right now?" Minsuk asked quietly. The needle paused an inch from his arm. "That's not. I heard crying last night. From the rooms below mine." "How many, doctor?" Dr. Yoon's expression cracked. He set the needle down with careful precision and moved to close the examination room door. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. 6. Currently. There have been more. Over the years. Minsuk's stomach turned. "Where are they?" "The Omega Rehabilitation Wing. Below the guest quarters. It's where we house pack members who've strayed, who need reintegration." "You mean Omegas who made it outside pack and were dragged back?" Minsuk stood, using every inch of authority he'd learned from Dimitri. "I want to see them." "That's not permitted. I'm pack physician in training, aren't I?" "That's what the elders offered." "Let me start now. I need to assess the Omega population's health status if I'm going to serve them properly." The lie came easily, wrapped in the language of compliance. "Unless the elders would prefer I remain ignorant of pack medical needs?" The threat was implicit. He'd make noise about it if denied, and noise meant questions the pack didn't want answered. Dr. Yoon's face cycled through conflict before settling on resigned defeat. 10 minutes. And if anyone asks, you demanded access and I couldn't stop you without causing a scene. The rehabilitation wing was a horror dressed in therapeutic language. 6 rooms, each with a lock on the outside, each containing an Omega in various stages of broken. Dr. Yoon unlocked the first door, and Minsuk stepped into a nightmare. The Omega inside was male, maybe 25, curled on a bed with his arms wrapped around himself. His scent was wrong, chemically flat from suppressants, underlaid with the sour tang of depression. He looked up when they entered, and his eyes were dead. "This is Sung-ho. Brought back 8 months ago. Previously bonded to a human alpha in Seoul." Dr. Yoon's voice was clinical, but Minsuk heard the self-loathing underneath. "He's been resistant to rebonding. We're adjusting his medication. You're drugging him into compliance." Minsuk moved to the bed, his medical training cataloging signs of malnutrition, sleep deprivation, and chemical dependency. "Does he even know what day it is?" Sung-ho's hand shot out, gripping Minsuk's wrist with surprising strength. "Tuesday," he slurred. "It's Tuesday. I'm not broken yet. Tell them I'm not broken." "You're not broken." Minsuk squeezed back, a lifeline. "I promise. You're not." The other 5 were variations on the same theme. Hannah, a female Omega who'd been there for 5 years, her bond forcibly dissolved and replaced with a mating to a pack alpha who beat her regularly. She spoke in monotone, effect flat, but her eyes tracked Minsuk with desperate intelligence. June, brought back 3 months ago from a life in Canada, still fighting despite the drugs. Miho and Sarah, siblings who'd fled together and been retrieved as a pair. And young Mi, barely 20, who'd been caught before her outside bond could fully form. 10 minutes became 30 as Minsuk examined each one, memorizing their conditions, their stories, their names. Dr. Yoon let it happen, perhaps grateful someone was finally bearing witness. When they returned to the examination room, Minsuk turned to the doctor with cold fury. "You're complicit in torture. I'm trying to keep them alive." Dr. Yoon's hands shook as he filed paperwork. "The alternative is worse. If they resist too much, if they become problems, they disappear. I do what I can within the system. Then help me break the system." Minsuk kept his voice low, urgent. "I have resources outside. Legal counsel. Federal connections through my mate. But I need evidence. Documentation. Proof of what's happening here. They'll kill you. And me. They're already killing us, just slowly." Minsuk moved closer. "My mate is head of the Russian Bratva. If I can get evidence out, he can bring federal authorities down on this place, so hard the pack will never recover. But I need your help." Dr. Yoon stared at him for a long moment, decades of complicity warring with whatever shred of conscience remained. Finally, he moved to his computer, pulled up files. "I keep records. Everything. Dosages, bonds broken, omegas who've gone through here. I told myself it was medical documentation, but really..." His voice broke. "Really, I think I kept it because someone needed to remember. Copy everything." Minsuk pulled out his phone, the one Dmitry had modified with encrypted storage and satellite backup. "Upload it here. When this is over, you'll face consequences for your part. But you can also be the reason it ends." Dr. Yoon's hands moved over the keyboard, file after file transferring. Intake forms, medical records, photographic documentation of injuries, audio recordings of forced rebonding ceremonies that made Minsuk's blood run cold. "The elders rotate which Omega gets rehabilitated when," Dr. Yoon said quietly. "They're planning your ceremony for 5 days from now. Kong Dae-young has already signed the bonding contract. You're scheduled for chemical bond dissolution tomorrow morning, then 3 days of suppressants to clear your system, then the forced claiming. And the others? How often do they cycle through new Omegas? 2 or 3 a year. Sometimes they die during the process. Sometimes they break completely and become compliant. Those get mated off to pack alphas who want broken partners. The truly resistant ones." He couldn't finish. "Disappear." Minsuk felt rage crystallize into purpose. "I need access to them. Regular access. Tell the elders I'm helping with rehabilitation as part of my integration. That seeing other Omegas adjust will help me accept my situation. They'll never believe that. They will if you frame it right. I'm a healer. Let me heal." Minsuk's smile was sharp, just not in the way they expect. The files finished uploading. Minsuk pocketed his phone, felt Dmitry's attention spike through the bond as the data reached him, and turned back to Dr. Yoon. "Get me in there every day. I'll assess their health, adjust their medications, and in the process, I'll prepare them." "For what?" "For the fact that in 25 days, we're all leaving. Every single one of us." Minsuk headed for the door, then paused. "And doctor? When the federal authorities come, cooperate fully. It might be the only thing that saves you from conspiracy charges." He walked back to his cell with his head high, his children's faces in his mind, and 6 more reasons to win burning in his chest. He wasn't just fighting for his family anymore. He was fighting for every Omega his pack had trapped, broken, and buried. And Dmitry's presence through the bond hummed with vicious approval, already planning how to turn Minsuk's evidence into their pack's extinction. 25 days. Minsuk could free them all in 25 days. Or die trying. His mother summoned him on the 4th day. Not a request, a command delivered by Tae-min with trembling hands and downcast eyes. "She's asking for you. The doctor says it won't be much longer." Minsuk had been in the rehabilitation wing, teaching Hannah breathing exercises to manage panic attacks, and quietly explaining Dmitry's extraction plan to June 21 days left. Federal authorities building a case from Dr. Yoon's evidence. Everything moving according to strategy. But his mother was dying, and despite everything, the manipulation, the kidnapping, the poisonous love, she was still his mother. He found her smaller than 4 days ago, the cancer eating her from the inside with visible efficiency. She'd refused treatment months ago, he'd learned from Dr. Yoon. Refused everything except pain management, as if she'd decided her timeline and was determined to meet it. "Minsuka." Her voice was paper thin. "Come. Sit." He sat on the edge of her bed like he had 4 days ago, a lifetime ago, and watched her hands, once so strong, so capable of both comfort and cruelty, shake as she reached for him. "I need to tell you something. Before." She coughed, a wet sound that spoke of fluid in her lungs. Before I don't have the chance. You orchestrated all of this to tell me something? Minsuk couldn't keep the bitterness out. You could have called, written, not kidnapped my children. You wouldn't have come for anything less. Her certainty was maddening. You were lost, Minsuk. Playing house with that Russian, pretending you could be something you're not. I had to bring you home while there was still time to fix it. Fix what exactly? My happiness? My career? My family? Your mistake. She gripped his hand with surprising strength. I made one too. When you presented Omega, when the elders said you had to leave, I should have fought harder. Should have found a way to keep you here, protected, instead of letting you think you had to survive alone. Minsuk stared at her, something cold settling in his chest. You think your mistake was letting me go? Not that you let them cast me out in the first place. They were right to separate you. Male Omegas need structure, guidance. You were always too independent, too willful. You needed time to understand your nature. She shifted against the pillows, wincing. But I should have brought you back sooner. Before you bonded that criminal. Before you got ideas about medical school and independence, and all these dangerous dreams. Dangerous dreams. Minsuk's voice came out flat. Like being a doctor. Like choosing my own mate. Like raising my children in safety. Safety. Her laugh turned into another cough. You've been shot, Minsuk. Shot because of him. You perform illegal surgeries for murderers. You live in a fortress because his enemies are trying to kill you. How is that safe? It's mine. My choice. My life. It's delusion. Tears leaked from her eyes, and Minsuk couldn't tell if they were from pain or conviction. I've watched you these 4 days. You're still that frightened boy who presented Omega and didn't know how to handle it. You've just found a different cage and convinced yourself it's freedom. Dmitri doesn't cage me. He owns you. He bit you, claimed you, made you his in front of his criminal empire. You think that's different from what we're offering? At least Kong Daeyoung is Pak. At least he'll keep you here, safe, where you belong. Minsuk pulled his hand away. Kong Daeyoung is a monster who's broken 4 Omegas. That's your definition of safe. He's strong. Traditional. He'll give you structure, purpose. You'll give him proper heirs, Pak blood, not those Russian children who'll grow up to be criminals like their father. She said it like it was reasonable. Like erasing his children's existence was an act of love. The twins will be raised here as cousins. They'll never know their real Omega parent was too weak to. Stop. Minsuk stood, hands shaking with rage. Those children are mine. Alexei and Anya. My son and daughter. I pulled bullets out of their father's chest while they screamed. I've fed them, protected them, loved them every single day of their lives. And you want me to erase that? Pretend they're someone else's? I want you to accept reality. His mother struggled to sit up, and despite everything, Minsuk helped her because she was dying and he was still a healer. You're not their parent, Minsuk. You're an Omega who got attached to a powerful Alpha's children. When Dmitri tires of you, when he finds a proper mate, you'll be discarded. This way you keep something. Here with Kong, with the Pak, you'll have security. I'd rather die. You say that now. She cupped his face with trembling hands, her eyes fever bright. But when you're older, when you see I was right, you'll understand. I'm doing this because I love you. Because you're my son, and I can't leave this world knowing you're lost. The horrifying thing was she meant it. She genuinely believed that forcing him into a brutal mating, erasing his bond with Dmitri, and stealing his children was an act of maternal devotion. Her love was poisonous, but it was love. Yama. Minsuk's voice cracked. Do you even know me? Do you know what I've accomplished in 2 years? I finished my medical degree. I run a clinic. I've saved dozens of lives. I'm respected, valued, needed. Dmitri sees me as an equal, as a partner. He doesn't try to control me, he trusts me. He lets you think you're equal because it's useful to him. Her conviction was unshakable. But you're Omega, Minsuk. We're not meant to lead. We're meant to nurture, to support, to strengthen our alphas and raise strong children. That Russian has twisted your understanding of your own nature. Or maybe the Pack twisted it first. Minsuk pulled away from her touch. Maybe I was never meant to be small and submissive and controlled. Maybe that's just what you needed to believe to justify how you treated me. I treated you with love. She was crying now, tears streaming down her hollowed cheeks. Everything I've done, letting you go, bringing you back, arranging this mating, it's all been love. Why can't you see that? Because love isn't supposed to hurt like this. Minsuk looked at his dying mother and felt something break that had been holding together through sheer will. Love doesn't kidnap, doesn't force, doesn't erase everything someone has built because it doesn't fit your vision of what they should be. You'll understand when you're older. When you have Omega children of your own and have to make hard choices for their protection. She lay back, exhausted from the argument. Promise me, Minsuk. Promise you'll try. For me. Let Kong claim you. Raise your children here. Let me die knowing I fixed my mistake. I can't promise that. Then promise you'll forgive me. Someday. When you realize I was right. Her hand found his again, grip weakening. Promise me that. Minsuk looked at his mother, the woman who'd taught him to read, who'd sung him to sleep as a child, who'd cried when the elders cast him out but hadn't fought for him, and felt a grief so profound it had no bottom. I forgive you, he whispered. Not because you're right, because you genuinely believe you are, and I can't hate you for being so damaged by pack tradition that you can't see what you're doing. She smiled, satisfied, and closed her eyes. Good. That's good. Jinwoo will take care of the details. The ceremony is tomorrow. Try not to fight it, Minsuk. It only hurts more if you fight. She fell asleep or unconscious, Minsuk couldn't tell. He sat beside her bed for another hour, watching her chest rise and fall in shallow breaths, and mourned not for who she was but for who she could have been if the pack hadn't poisoned her first. When he finally left, Taemin was waiting in the hallway. She asked me to give you this. After. He held out an envelope, sealed with her personal stamp. Minsuk took it with numb hands and didn't open it until he was back in his cell. Inside, a letter in his mother's elegant script, written before she'd gotten too weak to hold a pen properly. My dearest son, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I need you to know that everything I did was for you. The separation, the return, the mating arrangement, all of it was to save you from a life that would destroy you. Your Russian may seem powerful now, but men like that don't keep Omegas like you. They use and discard. At least with Kong, with the pack, you'll have permanence. Security. Purpose. I die knowing I did everything possible to protect you. Please don't hate me. Please understand someday. All my love, Yama. Minsuk read it 3 times, then carefully tore it into pieces and flushed them. Not out of hatred, but because he couldn't afford to carry her poisonous love into what came next. His mother died 2 hours later, peacefully, surrounded by family, believing she'd saved her son. Minsuk stood in the rehabilitation wing with Hannah and June and the others, teaching them how to fake compliance while preparing for escape, and realized his mother had been right about one thing. He did understand hard choices made for love. He just understood them in a way she never could. Because his love didn't cage. It freed. And in 17 days, he'd prove it. The call came at midnight, 18 days into captivity. Minsuk had been teaching Youngmi meditation techniques to manage forced heat suppressants when his phone vibrated with Dimitri's encrypted signal. He excused himself to his cell, locked the door, and answered to find his mate's face on the screen, haggard, furious, and barely holding together. I'm done waiting. No greeting, no preamble. Dimitri's gray eyes were storm-dark. I have 40 men ready to move. We hit the compound at dawn, extract you and the children, eliminate the elders and your brother. Clean, fast, minimal collateral damage. Minsuk's blood went cold. No, it's not a negotiation. Dimitri's voice carried the alpha command that usually made lesser men submit. I've given you 18 days to play politics and gather evidence while our children ask for you every night, and you're being prepared for forced mating to a monster. Enough. I'm bringing you home. By starting a war that will get innocent people killed. Minsuk kept his voice low but firm. There are over 200 pack members in this compound, Dimitri. Children. Omegas who have nothing to do with this. My siblings. Will be extracted safely. I'm not a butcher, Minsuk. We'll target leadership, secure you and the twins, and be out before. Before what? Before the pack's security responds? Before other packs get involved because you violated the covenant? Before federal authorities investigate a massacre on sovereign pack land? Minsuk's hands tighten on the phone. You storm in with guns, everything I've built here collapses. The evidence, the other Omegas I'm preparing to extract, the legal case. All of it gone because you couldn't trust me to handle this. Handle this? Dimitri's laugh was sharp, brittle. You're locked in a cell. They're drugging other Omegas into compliance in the room below you. In 4 days, they're going to chemically dissolve our bond and force you to mate a man who's killed previous partners. Tell me exactly what part of this you're handling. The words hit like physical blows. Minsuk felt Dimitri's fear through their bond. Raw, desperate, the terror of an alpha whose mate was in danger and unreachable. But beneath it, he also felt the assumption that had always lurked at the edges of their relationship. You don't think I can do this? Minsuk's voice came out flat. You don't think I'm strong enough, smart enough, capable enough to win without you coming in to save me? That's not. Dmitri stopped, jaw working. You're not trained for this. You're a healer, not a soldier. There's no shame in needing backup. Backup I asked for is support. Backup you force on me against my explicit strategy is you not trusting my judgment. Minsuk stood, pacing his small cell. I have evidence of Omega trafficking. I have Dr. Yoon ready to testify. I have 6 Omegas organized and prepared for coordinated extraction. Patricia is working with federal authorities to build a case that will dismantle this pack legally and permanently. Your solution is bullets and bodies. Mine is justice that actually lasts. Your solution assumes you survive the next 4 days. Dimitri's control cracked, alpha possessiveness bleeding through. What happens when they inject you with bond-breaking chemicals? When Kong puts his hands on you? When he tries to bite you? Am I supposed to sit here and wait for your brilliant strategy while you're being assaulted? Yes. Minsuk's voice rose. Because I need you to trust that I have a plan, that I'm not helpless, that I'm not the broken Omega who needed saving in that warehouse anymore. I've grown, Dmitri. I've learned. From you, from this life we've built. But you can't see it because you're still trying to protect me like I'm fragile. You are fragile. Dimitri's voice dropped to something raw. You're human and mortal and the most important thing in my world, and they have you in their hands. Do you understand what that does to me? Feeling your fear through the bond? Knowing you're surrounded by enemies and I'm 3 hours away, helpless? So that's what this is about. Minsuk's anger shifted to something colder. Your comfort. Your need to feel in control. Not actually what's best for the mission or the innocents involved, but your alpha instinct to possess and protect regardless of what I need. That's not fair. It's completely fair. Minsuk's hand went to his mating mark, to the scar that bound them. You sent me to that cabin without backup. You made a tactical decision that nearly got us all killed, and I had to be the one to save us. I trusted your judgment even when I hated it. Now I'm asking you to trust mine. That was different. How? How is it different? Because I wasn't asking you to let me walk into a forced mating while I stood by. Dmitri slammed his hand on something off-screen. You want trust? Fine. I trust you're brilliant, capable, and stronger than anyone gives you credit for. I also trust that you're an Omega-facing 5-pack alphas who will drug you unconscious and hand you to a rapist if you're still there in 4 days. Both things can be true, Minsuk. And if you come in shooting, you'll kill any chance of legal resolution. The pack will scatter, destroy evidence, and will spend years fighting custody battles while victors. Minsuk caught himself, but too late. Dimitri's expression went utterly still. Victors what? Nothing. Don't lie to me. Not now. The alpha's eyes were glacier cold. Victors what, Minsuk? Minsuk closed his eyes, exhaustion and fear finally overwhelming strategy. Jinwoo has been in contact with remnants of Victor's organization. He wants to use my connection to you to move product through Bratva territory. That's why they want me compliant. I'm supposed to be leveraged to force your cooperation. The silence on the other end was absolute. When Dmitri finally spoke, his voice was soft in the way that preceded extreme violence. Your brother is working with my dead enemy's people. To use you as a hostage. And you didn't think to mention this. I was handling it. You were keeping critical intelligence from me while walking into a trap within a trap. Dimitri's face went expressionless, the mask he wore when making kill decisions. That's not trust, Malchik. That's you trying to protect me from my own war. Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. Minsuk's voice cracked. You'd stop thinking strategically and start thinking in body counts. The evidence I have proves Jinwoo's trafficking connections. It's leverage, Dmitri. Federal authorities will move heaven and earth to break a pack that's partnering with organized crime. But only if we let them do it legally. Or I kill your brother tonight and eliminate the problem permanently. And prove to everyone that I'm exactly what they say, an Omega who made it a violent criminal who solves everything with murder. Minsuk felt tears burning his eyes, fury and fear tangled into something that hurt to breathe around. Is that what you want? To be right about violence being the only answer? To prove my mother right about you? Dmitri flinched like he'd been shot. Your mother who just died trying to force you into sexual slavery for your own good? That's who you're using as a moral compass. That's not. No, tell me. Because from where I'm sitting, you're letting her poison sink in. You're second-guessing your mate, your bond, everything we've built because dead woman who never saw your worth convinced you I'm just another man trying to cage you. You're trying to make my decisions for me. I'm trying to keep you alive. Dimitri's roar was probably audible 3 rooms over. There's a difference between respecting your autonomy and watching you walk into guaranteed trauma because you're too stubborn to accept help. Help I don't want. Help that undermines everything I'm trying to accomplish. They stared at each other through the screen, both breathing hard, the bond between them crackling with fury and fear, and something that felt dangerously like fracture. For days, Dmitri finally said, his voice utterly flat. You have 4 days to execute your strategy. If you're not out with the children by then, I'm coming with everything I have. And I don't care about evidence or federal cases or your brother's connections. I care about you alive and unmated to anyone but me. That's an ultimatum. That's reality. Dmitri's gray eyes held his. I trust you, Minsuk, but I trust my need to protect you more. Hate me for it if you want. Just survive long enough to do it in person. The call ended. No goodbye, no reassurance, just dead air where their connection had been. Minsuk sat in his cell, feeling Dmitri's anguish through the bond. Alpha instincts screaming to protect his mate, warring with the promise to trust, and wondered if love could survive this kind of strain. For days until Dmitri came in shooting. For days to prove he was right, that strategy beat violence, that he wasn't helpless. For days to save 6 Omegas, his children, and a bond that felt like it was tearing at the seams. Minsuk touched his mating mark and felt Dmitri's presence, furious, terrified, but still there. I love you, he projected through the bond. Even when I hate you. Especially then. Dmitri's response came back savage and desperate. Survive. Everything else is negotiable. Minsuk lay down in his cell and began counting hours until either freedom or war. And prayed he'd chosen right. Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers and tell me where you're watching from. The break came from the most unlikely source. Hannah, the Omega who'd been trapped for 5 years, her effect so flat Minsuk had initially worried she was too broken to help. But flatness, it turned out, made her invisible in exactly the way Minsuk had learned to be. The guards didn't watch her anymore. She could move through the compound like a ghost. Jinwoo keeps files in his office, she whispered during Minsuk's morning medical visit, 2 days after the fight with Dmitri. Physical files. He doesn't trust digital for the important things. I clean there sometimes. They think I'm too sedated to notice anything. Minsuk kept his hands steady while checking her blood pressure, aware of Dr. Yoon in the corner documenting. What kind of files? Shipping manifests. Communications with someone named Alexei. Not your Dmitri's Alexei, someone else. References to routes and product. Her dead eyes flickered with something sharp. I was an accountant before. I recognize money laundering when I see it. Can you get me in there? I can get you the files. Hannah's hand caught his wrist, grip surprisingly strong. Tonight, during the ceremony preparations, everyone will be focused on you. The ceremony, the forced bond dissolution, and mating to Kang Daeyoung scheduled for tomorrow morning. Minsuk's stomach turned, but he kept his expression neutral. What ceremony preparations? Traditional cleansing rituals. They'll take you to the purification rooms at midnight, keep you there until dawn. Hannah's voice dropped even lower. You'll be sedated, bathed, prepared. It's when they're most distracted. Dr. Yoon cleared his throat. That's enough conversation. The Omega needs rest. But Minsuk saw the doctor's slight nod. Permission. Complicity. Another crack in the Pax foundation. That evening, Minsuk used his phone. The one Dmitri had built with enough encryption that even Pax security couldn't crack it, to map out Jinwoo's office from the compound schematics he'd memorized as a child. Patricia had been feeding him layouts through secure channels, and he'd spent 18 days rebuilding a mental picture of every corridor, every camera blind spot, every escape route. At 9 p.m., Taemin brought dinner and news. The elders want to see you. Final meeting before tomorrow. Minsuk had expected this. The last attempt at breaking his will through psychological warfare. He followed Taemin to the council chamber where Jinwoo and 3 remaining elders waited. Elder Park had died of a heart attack 2 days ago. Stress, they'd said. Minsuk suspected it was conscience. Last chance, little brother. Jinwoo looked relaxed, confident, already celebrating victory. Accept this gracefully. Make our mother's sacrifice meaningful. Or we proceed with force, and it will be unpleasant. I have a question first. Minsuk kept his voice steady, respectful. The Omega Rehabilitation Program, how long has it been running? Jinwoo's eyes narrowed. Why? Medical curiosity. If I'm to be Pack physician, I should understand the full scope of Omega care. The lie came easily now, wrapped in compliance. How many Omegas have gone through the program? Approximately 40 over the last decade. Elder Kim answered, proud. With an 80% success rate in successful rebonding and reintegration. And the other 20%? Silence. Heavy. Damning. Complications. Jinwoo finally said. Not every Omega is strong enough for the process. But that's the price of correction. Minsuk filed that away, 40 Omegas, 20% dead or disappeared, systematic trafficking. The evidence kept mounting. I understand. Thank you for clarifying. The elders exchanged glances, surprised by his sudden cooperation. Jinwoo leaned forward, sensing weakness. You're accepting this. Finally. I'm accepting that I can't fight you alone. Minsuk injected defeat into his voice, let his shoulders slump. My mate is 3 hours away. You have my children. You have legal authority. What choice do I have? Smart boy. Jinwoo stood, moved to grip Minsuk's shoulder. This is better. For everyone. Kong will be firm. But you'll adjust. They all do eventually. Minsuk met his brother's eyes and saw genuine belief that this was mercy. Jinwoo actually thought he was helping, protecting pack interests and correcting a deviant Omega in one efficient move. The delusion was almost admirable. Can I see my children? Before tomorrow? Please. He let his voice crack. Just once. Jinwoo considered, then nodded. Supervised. 30 minutes. Consider it a gift. They brought Alexei and Anya to a visiting room. Sterile, monitored, his father standing guard with an expression carved from guilt and duty. The twins saw Minsuk and exploded into motion, running to him with cries of "Mama! Mama!" that shattered what remained of his composure. He held them for 30 minutes that felt like 30 seconds, memorizing their weight, their scent, the way Anya's hand curled in his shirt, and Alexei whispered, "Papa coming? Papa get us?" in confused Russian. Soon, Minsuk promised, his face buried in their hair. Papa's coming soon. Be brave for me. Both of you. Be so brave. His father's hand twitched toward his weapon, and Minsuk knew, transmission received. Dmitri had heard through the phone hidden in Minsuk's pocket. Knew the twins were okay. Knew the timeline. When the guards took them away, Alexei screaming and Anya sobbing, Minsuk let himself break down. Let the guards see him crumble, weeping on the floor, defeated. Let them report to Jinwoo that the Omega was finally, completely broken. Then he returned to his cell, waited until 11 p.m., and climbed out his window. The pack compound at night was all shadows and security patterns Minsuk had memorized. He moved through blind spots, pressed against walls, using every trick Dmitri had ever taught him about being invisible in hostile territory. The medical wing key card Dr. Yoon had accidentally left in his dinner tray got him through the first checkpoint. Jinwoo's office was on the second floor of the administrative building, protected by biometric locks Minsuk couldn't break. But the air vent that serviced the room connected to the medical supply closet, and Minsuk was small enough, desperate enough, and had spent 2 years learning that being underestimated was the best weapon. He squeezed through ductwork that scraped his shoulders raw, dropped into Jinwoo's office at 11:47 p.m., and had 13 minutes before guard rotation. The files were exactly where Hannah said they'd be. Physical ledgers documenting Omega trafficking, payments to foreign contacts, shipping manifests for product that was clearly human. And there, in Jinwoo's own handwriting, communications with Viktor Kozlov's nephew Pyotr about using the Volkov connection to move heroin through established Bratva routes. Minsuk's hands shook as he photographed everything with his phone, the evidence downloading directly to encrypted servers where Patricia, Dmitri, and federal agents were building a case that would destroy the pack's legal standing permanently. Shipping routes. Names. Dates. 40 Omegas trafficked. 8 confirmed dead. Financial transactions proving Jinwoo had been planning this for years, building connections with organized crime while the elders remained oblivious or complicit. At 11:58, Minsuk heard footsteps in the corridor. He grabbed the most damning ledger, couldn't photograph fast enough, and retreated to the air vent seconds before the door opened. Jinwoo's voice, talking to someone. Everything ready for tomorrow? The Omega is broken. This will be smooth. Kong is eager. Perhaps too eager. That was Elder Kim. Are you certain about the Kozlov connection? If the Russian discovers our arrangement, the Russian will cooperate or watch his Omega suffer. It's simple leverage. Jinwoo's footsteps moved to his desk. After tomorrow, we have legitimate claim to Bratva routes, access to. What the fuck? Minsuk was already moving, crawling through ductwork as Jinwoo discovered the disturbed files. Alarms started blaring. Shouts. The compound erupting into chaos. He dropped from the medical wing vent, sprinted through corridors, and made it back to his cell with 30 seconds to spare. Shoved the ledger under his mattress, his phone back in his pocket, and was sitting on his bed looking appropriately terrified when guards burst through his door. The Omega hasn't left, one shouted into his radio. Cell is secure. They searched anyway, but Minsuk had learned from the best. The ledger was too well hidden, the phone too encrypted. They left him with warnings and increased security. At 1 a.m., Minsuk's phone buzzed. Dmitri. I have it all, Minsuk typed. 40 Omegas trafficked. 8 dead. Victor's nephew Pyotr as Jean Wu's contact. Financial records. Everything. Patricia has it. Federal authorities are moving. I'm 30 minutes out. Dmitri's response was immediate. With 40 men. We end this tonight. No. Wait for federal. They have 12 hours to move. We have until dawn before they drug you. I'm not waiting. Minsuk stared at his phone, at the evidence he'd risked everything to gather, at the strategic victory within reach. Then he looked at the clock counting down to chemical bond dissolution and forced mating. Sometimes love meant trusting strategy. Sometimes it meant trusting your mate knew when strategy had run out. 30 minutes, Minsuk typed back. I'll have the rehabilitation wing ready. 6 Omegas to extract. And Dmitri? I'm sorry. About the fight. About everything. Survive. We'll fight about it later. The bond hummed with Dmitri's fear, love, and absolute determination. Minsuk touched his mating mark and smiled. Time for the Omega who'd learned to be dangerous to show exactly what that meant. He had 6 Omegas to prepare, children to protect, and 28 minutes until his mate arrived with the Bratva at his back. The pack had wanted him broken. They were about to learn what happened when you cornered something that had learned to bite back. They came for him at 2 a.m., 28 minutes before Dmitri was scheduled to arrive. Jean Wu himself led the extraction team, his expression carved from fury and something that might have been panic. You clever little shit. He grabbed Minsuk by the throat, slammed him against the wall. You've been playing us this entire time. The compliance, the broken act, all of it fake while you stole evidence and contacted federal authorities. Minsuk's hand went to his phone, but Jean Wu ripped it away, crushed it under his heel. Looking for this? Your Russian's tracker just went dead. As far as he knows, you could be anywhere. Could be dead already. He's coming anyway. Minsuk forced the words out despite the grip on his throat. You can't stop him. I don't need to stop him. I just need to make you useless as leverage. Jean Wu dragged him toward the door. Emergency ceremony. Right now. Once Kang's bite takes, your bond to Volkov is legally and biologically void. The Russian can storm in with an army, but you'll belong to pack law, and there's nothing he can do about it. They hauled Minsuk through corridors, past the rehabilitation wing where he caught Hannah's eyes through a doorway. Wide, terrified, understanding. He tried to signal, to tell her Dmitri was coming, but guards blocked his view. The ceremonial room was traditional Hanok architecture, all dark wood and exposed beams, with a raised platform in the center. Kang Daeyoung waited there, 60 years old and built like violence, his scent overpowering. Dominant alpha mixed with something sour that spoke of previous Omegas broken. He smiled when he saw Minsuk, and it was the smile of a predator who'd already won. Finally, Kang's voice was gravel. Jean Wu promised me something spirited. I do enjoy breaking in the resistant ones. The elders were absent. This wasn't sanctioned, Minsuk realized. This was Jean Wu's desperation play, forcing a bond before federal authorities or Dmitri could intervene. Illegal even by pack law, but Jean Wu was betting that once the bite took, no one would contest it. Put him on the platform. Jean Wu's voice carried command. Restrain him. We do this fast. For guards forced Minsuk down, securing his wrists and ankles to iron rings embedded in the wood. Traditional bonding restraints, designed for reluctant Omegas who needed to be held still during claiming. Minsuk fought, had to make it look real, but they were prepared for resistance. The injection, Jean Wu said, and a pack doctor Minsuk didn't recognize approached with a syringe filled with clear liquid. What is that? Minsuk's voice came out steady despite his racing heart. Bond dissolution compound. Epinephrine and synthetic alpha pheromone blockers. It'll suppress your existing bond enough for a new one to take. The doctor's hands were steady, professional, complicit. You'll feel disoriented, nauseous. The pain when your current bond starts to break is significant. But it passes. You're killing me. We're freeing you. Jean Wu nodded to the doctor, who pressed the needle to Minsuk's neck, right over Dmitri's mating mark. The injection burned like liquid fire. Minsuk felt it spread through his bloodstream, felt his bond with Dmitri. That constant presence, that anchor, start to fray at the edges. Dmitri's response through their connection was immediate and agonized, a roar of alpha rage that Minsuk felt in his bones despite the drugs. He feels it, Minsuk gasped. He knows what you're doing. He's coming. Let him come. By the time he arrives, you'll be Kang's. Jinwoo stepped back, gestured to the waiting Alpha. Proceed. Traditional claiming. Make sure the bite is deep enough that there's no question of validity. Kong approached the platform like a man savoring a meal. He circled Min-suk once, assessing, then leaned down to scent his throat. His tongue traced over Dimitri's mark, and Min-suk's stomach heaved with revulsion. I can taste the Russian on you, Kong murmured. Weak bond. Probably never should have taken in the first place. Male omegas need firmer handling. His hand closed around Min-suk's throat, forcing his head to the side to expose the mating gland. I'll teach you proper submission. My previous omegas all learned eventually. Min-suk's vision was graying at the edges from the drug, his bond with Dimitri unraveling strand by strand, but his mind was crystalline clear. He'd prepared for this possibility. Had known since day 3 that Jinwoo might force the issue. Had stolen supplies from Dr. Yoon's office and hidden them in the waistband of his pants. A place the guards hadn't searched thoroughly because they were men and he was Omega and they didn't expect him to be dangerous. Kang's teeth grazed his throat, positioning for the bite that would claim him, and Min-suk made his choice. His bound hands could still reach his waistband. His fingers closed around the small syringe he'd concealed. 10 milligrams of epinephrine mixed with concentrated wolfsbane extract, a compound toxic to alpha pheromone receptors. Dr. Yoon had it locked away for extreme allergic reactions. Min-suk had stolen it for exactly this moment. I'd rather die, Min-suk said clearly, and jammed the needle into his own femoral artery. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. His body went into toxic shock, blood pressure spiking, heart rate accelerating to dangerous levels. The omega pheromones that Kong needed to complete the bond turned poisonous, repelling instead of attracting. His scent shifted from compatible to chemically hostile. Kong jerked back with a roar. What did you? Min-suk's vision tunneled. He felt his body rejecting everything. The forced bond dissolution drug, the wolfsbane, the alpha trying to claim him. His omega biology, faced with incompatible stimuli, chose the nuclear option, complete system shutdown. He's poisoned himself. The pack doctor lunged forward, checking vitals. Heart rate 180. Blood pressure critical. He's going into anaphylactic shock. Fix it. Jinwoo grabbed the doctor. Stabilize him and complete the bond. I can't. His pheromone profile is toxic right now. Any alpha who tries to bite him will be rejected. The bond won't take. And if I don't treat the poisoning immediately, he'll be dead in 10 minutes. Min-suk heard this from very far away. His bond with Dimitri was screaming. Their mate connection sensing his imminent death, Dimitri's alpha instincts going nuclear with the need to save him. Through the gray haze, Min-suk felt his mate's presence getting closer, felt the Bratva descending on the compound like an avenging army. You insane Omega, Jinwoo's voice was distant, horrified. You'd kill yourself rather than accept proper bonding? Every single time. Min-suk's words slurred, his body shutting down. Not yours. Never yours. Get him to medical. Now. Jinwoo was shouting orders, but Min-suk couldn't track them anymore. His consciousness was fragmenting, the world reducing to pain and the sound of his own failing heartbeat. Somewhere outside, gunfire erupted. Shouting in Russian. Dimitri's voice, roaring his name. Min-suk smiled through the pain. His mate had come. Was fighting his way through the compound, tearing apart anyone between him and his dying Omega. Min-suk had bought the time they needed. Federal authorities were 20 minutes out, the trafficking evidence was secure, and he'd prevented Jinwoo from using him as leverage. He just had to stay alive long enough for Dimitri to reach him. His heart stuttered. Once. Twice. The bond with Dimitri pulled taut, and Min-suk felt his mate's terror like a physical blow. I'm sorry, he projected through their dying connection. I'm sorry. I love you. I had to. Dimitri's response was incoherent alpha rage and grief. Don't you fucking dare. Stay with me. Stay. The ceremonial room doors exploded inward. Dimitri stood in the wreckage, covered in blood that wasn't his, gray eyes wild and lethal, and behind him a small army of Bratva enforcers cutting through pack security like they were made of paper. Jinwoo reached for a weapon, but Dimitri was faster, crossing the space in 3 strides and slamming his brother-in-law against the wall with enough force to crack the wood. Where is he? There. Jinwoo's voice was choked. Platform. He poisoned himself. The bond failed. He's dying. Dimitri's head whipped around, found Min-suk on the platform, and the sound that came out of him wasn't human. He released Jinwoo, let him crumple to the floor, and was at Min-suk's side in a heartbeat, tearing through the restraints with bare hands. No, 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 no. Dimitri's hands were shaking as he gathered Minsuk into his arms. Malchik, what did you do? What the fuck did you do? Wolfsbane, the pack doctor said, backing away from the Bratva guns now trained on him. And epinephrine. He made himself toxic to prevent bonding. If he doesn't get activated charcoal and alpha pheromone stabilization in the next 5 minutes, then get it. Dimitri's roar made everyone in the room flinch. Someone get a fucking medic in here now. But Minsuk's hand found Dimitri's face, his touch weak but deliberate. Did it? Stop them. Evidence safe. Yes. Fuck yes, it's safe. Patricia has everything. Federal agents are en route. You won. Dimitri's voice broke. You won, so you don't get to die on me. That's not how this ends. Tired. Minsuk's eyes were closing. So tired. Tell the twins. You'll tell them yourself. Dimitri's teeth found Minsuk's throat, right over his mating mark, and bit down, not claiming but reinforcing. Flooding Minsuk's failing system with alpha pheromones, using their bond to stabilize what the poison was destroying. You're mine. You don't get to leave me. I forbid it. The alpha pheromones hit Minsuk's system like a defibrillator. His heart stuttered, caught, steadied. The bond between them flared bright and agonizing, and Minsuk gasped as his body decided, against all odds, against all logic, to fight. That's it. Dimitri held him tighter, kept bleeding pheromones into their bond. Come back to me. Come back. Please. Minsuk's eyes opened, focused on Dimitri's face. Hi. Hi. Dimitri's laugh was half-sob. You terrifying, brilliant, insane Omega. I'm going to kill you myself once you survive this. Get in line. Minsuk managed a smile. Jinwoo called dibs. Around them, the Bratva secured the room. Federal agents poured through the doors Patricia had apparently called ahead. Someone was reading Jinwoo his rights. Kong Dae-young was in restraints, roaring about Omega defiance. The pack elders were being rounded up. And Minsuk lay in his mate's arms, poisoned and dying and absolutely victorious, and felt nothing but peace. He'd won. Not with violence. With strategy, sacrifice, and the willingness to bet everything on his own worth. The twins, he whispered. Secure. Alive. Waiting for you. Dimitri's hand cupped his face. Along with 6 Omegas you apparently freed on your way to dying. Hannah won't stop asking if you're okay. Tell her yes. Minsuk's eyes closed again, but this time it was exhaustion, not death. Tell her we're all going home. Together, Dimitri confirmed. Always together. And in a ceremonial room designed for forced bonding, surrounded by the wreckage of a pack built on control, Minsuk finally let himself fall unconscious in his mate's arms. He'd proven his point. He'd rather die free than live caged. And that choice had saved them all. Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers and tell me where you're watching from. The medical team that Dimitri had brought the doctors who'd learned their trade patching up bullet wounds in back alleys, worked on Minsuk with efficient desperation. Activated charcoal pumped directly into his stomach, for lines flooding his system with fluids and antivenins, while Dimitri crouched beside the platform and maintained the physical contact that kept their bond feeding stabilizing pheromones into Minsuk's failing body. Federal agents swarmed the compound. Patricia Chin appeared like an avenging angel with a dozen FBI agents and representatives from the Department of Supernatural Affairs. Paperwork already drawn up for emergency custody transfers and trafficking charges. The pack elders were being zip-tied and read their rights. Dr. Yoon was cooperating, his confession spilling out in relieved torrents. And Jinwoo stood in the center of the chaos with a gun to Anya's head. Minsuk didn't remember his brother moving. One moment Jinwoo had been against the wall where Dimitri had left him. The next he'd grabbed both twins from the pack Omega holding them and retreated to the far side of the ceremonial room. Alexei screamed. Anya went eerily quiet in the way traumatized children did. Everyone stops. Jinwoo's voice cut through the chaos. Federal agents, Bratva, all of you. Back away, or I'll show you exactly how much I value pack blood when it's inconvenient. The room froze. 30 guns trained on Jinwoo, but none willing to risk the shot with toddlers in his arms. Dimitri's hand tightened on Minsuk's shoulder, his alpha rage barely leashed. You won't, Dimitri said quietly, lethally. They're your nephew and niece. Pack. You won't. They're leverage. They've always been leverage. That's all children are in this world. Tools to control their parents. Jinwoo's gun pressed harder against Anya's temple, and she whimpered. Minsuk lives, and I walk out of here. Simple exchange. Try to stop me, and I demonstrate that dead hostages are better than cooperative ones. Minsuk tried to sit up, tried to move toward his children, but his body was still shutting down from the poison. He could only watch as his brother weaponized the twins, as federal agents calculated angles, as Dimitri's control frayed at the edges. He's bluffing. Patricia's voice was steady despite her pale face. Jean Wu, you're facing federal trafficking charges. Killing those children adds double homicide. You gain nothing. I gain not spending life in prison. Jean Wu backed toward the door, using the twins as shields. My mother orchestrated this to save the pack. I executed her vision. The Omega trafficking was just business. They were better off here than wherever they'd run to. The Kozlov connection was opportunity. None of it warrants destroying everything our family built. Your mother is dead. The voice came from the doorway, thin and sharp as broken glass. Everyone turned. Minsuk's mother stood there, held upright by 2 pack Omegas, her deathbed clothes hanging off her skeletal frame, and 4 lines still trailing from her arm. She should have been dead. The cancer was hours from finishing her. But pure will was keeping her conscious, keeping her standing. Yama. Jean Wu's voice cracked. You shouldn't be here. Go back to bed. Let me fix this. Fix this. She took a step forward, each movement visible agony. You've destroyed everything. The pack, the family, the traditions I tried to preserve. And now you hold my grandchildren, my blood, at gunpoint like they're disposable. They're leveraged to save you, to save the pack. I don't want to be saved. Her voice, strengthened by fury, filled the room. Not like this. Not with children's blood and Omega trafficking and alliances with the criminals who killed Dimitri's mate. This isn't preservation, Jean Wu. This is corruption. Jean Wu's face twisted. You orchestrated bringing Minsuk back. You approved the Kong arrangement. You can't claim moral high ground now. I was wrong. The words came out like broken glass, each one cutting her. About all of it. About what Omegas need, about what strength means, about sacrificing my son's happiness for pack tradition. Her eyes found Minsuk on the platform, and something in them softened. I was poisoned by the same traditions that are poisoning you. But I won't let you murder children to maintain them. Yama, don't. But she was already moving. A pack enforcer's gun had fallen during the initial raid, lying forgotten near the ceremonial altar. Minsuk's mother bent with agonizing slowness, her body screaming protest, and picked it up with shaking hands. Put down my grandchildren. Her voice carried absolute command despite the gun wavering. Now, Jean Wu. You won't shoot your own son. But Jean Wu's voice held uncertainty. You can't. I already killed one son by letting you become this. Her finger found the trigger. I won't let you kill 2 more children to save yourself. The room held its breath. Federal agents, Bratva enforcers, pack members, all frozen by the tableau of a dying mother facing her corrupted son over the bodies of innocents. Jean Wu's calculation was visible. Could she actually shoot? Would she risk hitting the twins? Could he? She fired. The shot wasn't clean. Her hands shook too much, her body too weak. The bullet caught Jean Wu in the shoulder instead of center mass, but it was enough. He dropped Anya, stumbled, and Dimitri was already moving, covering the distance in a blur of alpha speed and grabbing both twins before Jean Wu could recover. Federal agents swarmed Jean Wu, taking him down hard, securing him while he screamed about betrayal and family and everything he'd sacrificed. Minsuk's mother dropped the gun, dropped to her knees. The exertion had torn something inside her. Blood bloomed across her white deathbed gown, dark and final. Yama. Minsuk found strength from somewhere, stumbled off the platform despite the medical team's protests, and caught his mother as she fell. Minsuka. Her hand found his face, the touch gentler than anything she'd given him in 2 years. I'm sorry. For all of it. For not fighting harder. For believing tradition mattered more than your happiness. Don't talk. We'll get you help. There is no help. I'm dying. Have been for months. She smiled, sad and knowing. But I got to choose how. Got to save something before the end. Your children. Your happiness. That's worth it. Tears blurred Minsuk's vision. You were wrong about so much. About me, about Dimitri, about what Omegas need. I know. I died learning it. Her thumb traced his mating mark, Dimitri's claim permanent on his skin. But you were right. About choosing your own family. About love not being a cage. I see it now. See him. Her eyes found Dimitri, who stood nearby with both twins, giving them this moment. He loves you the way I should have. Fiercely. Without conditions. Yama. Forgive me. Please. I don't deserve it. But let me die knowing you'll remember the good parts too. The lullabies. The bedtime stories. Before the pack poisoned everything. Her breathing was labored, each word harder than the last. Be happy, Minsuk. Raise those babies in freedom. Be everything I couldn't be. Minsuk held his dying mother and felt 2 years of anger, grief, and betrayal crack open. I forgive you. I forgive you. She smiled, peaceful for maybe the first time in years. Her eyes closed. Her last breath rattled out between them. And Minsuk felt the moment she left. The particular stillness that came when someone stopped being a person and became a memory. He knelt there holding her for a long moment while the compound fell apart around them. Federal agents processed the remaining elders. Jinwoo was being hauled away, screaming threats and curses. The 6 Omegas from rehabilitation were being brought out, blinking in freedom. Pack members who'd known nothing of the trafficking were watching their entire world collapse. And Minsuk held his mother's body and grieved for who she could have been if the pack hadn't broken her first. Dmitri appeared beside him, the twins in his arms, both reaching for their Omega parent with desperate hands. Malchik, we need to get you to medical. Your vitals are still critical. She saved them. Minsuk's voice was hollow. She was dying and she chose them over everything she believed in. She chose you. Dmitri's hand found his shoulder. In the end, she chose you. That's something. Minsuk let himself be pulled to standing. Let Dmitri guide him toward the waiting ambulance where the Bratva medical team had set up a mobile unit. The twins clung to both of them, Anya silent and Alexei whispering, Mama okay? Mama okay, on repeat. Mama's okay, Minsuk promised, not sure if it was true but needing it to be. Papa got us. We're going home. In the ambulance racing toward the Bratva medical facility, Dmitri pulled Minsuk into his lap, positioned his head to expose the mating mark, and bit down again. Not claiming, that was permanent, but reinforcing, flooding their bond with alpha pheromones that said mine and safe, and never leaving you. The bite hurt and healed simultaneously, anchoring Minsuk to consciousness through pure force of their connection. You poisoned yourself, Dmitri said against his throat. You actually chose death over forced bonding. Wouldn't have died. Had faith you'd get there. Minsuk's words slurred with exhaustion and trauma. Always knew you'd come. Reckless. Brilliant. Terrifying. Dmitri's arms tightened. And mine. Only mine. Say it. Yours. Minsuk let his eyes close, let his mate's presence surround him. Always yours. Equal partners in stupidly dangerous plans. We're having a very long conversation about risk assessment when you're recovered. Looking forward to it. The ambulance sirens wailed, carrying them away from the pack compound that would be dismantled by federal order within the week. Behind them, Patricia Chin coordinated the largest Omega trafficking bust in modern supernatural history. 6 Omegas freed, 40 more cases reopened, Jinwoo facing life in prison, and the J-Pack's legal standing permanently revoked. And Minsuk, poisoned and grieving and absolutely victorious, held his mate and his children and felt nothing but peace. He'd won. Not with violence, though there'd been plenty. Not with submission, though he'd faked it masterfully. But with strategy, sacrifice, and the willingness to bet his life that he was worth more than the pack had ever told him. His mother had seen it, finally. Had chosen him at the very end. It didn't erase 2 years of abandonment. Didn't fix the poisonous love, or the manipulation, or the forced ceremony. But it was something. And as Minsuk drifted into unconsciousness, held by his mate, his children safe, and 6 Omegas freed, he decided it was enough. His mother had been wrong about almost everything. But in her last moment, she'd been right about one thing. Love wasn't supposed to be a cage. And Minsuk had finally built a life where it wasn't.